Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, as you can tell from the title up there, continuing my trek through the episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond Season 6. We're now on episode 15, Cookies. And as you can tell from my background, unlike the last two episodes, I'm back home. I meant to record at least one more out there, but it is what it is. Cookies. This is the episode where we get to see Allie and the Scouts, and we also are introduced to Ray's brief nemesis, Peggy, and a little Flo cameo, apparently. I never noticed that. Just before I get too far into it, just a reminder, if you want to support the channel, both the Patreon and PayPal links are down below. If you want to gain access to videos early and also be able to suggest the topics for future videos, go the Patreon route. If you just want to do one-off requests or one-off support, go the PayPal route. Either way, your support is appreciated. Cookies. This is another Steve Skrovan written episode. And Peggy is played by Amy Aquino, if I'm pronouncing that last name right. From Jersey and all that. She was also in Working Girl, The Lazarus Effect, Picket Fences. She was in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier too. Handful of other shows, so she's been getting work. Here she's in Raymond a couple times as Peggy. This is her first appearance. I'm trying to find her second one real quick here on IMDb, but a lot of stuff to go through. Okay, she's in the show a couple times. Her last appearance is in the last season. The next appearance is going to be in the next season. It looks like she has one appearance over the next couple seasons. Yeah. Next one is the main one I remember, and I kind of remember the one after that, but she becomes the resident bully mom, which you're going to hear some of my thoughts of that in this one, but you're going to find out a little bit more about it in the next episode we see her. That's all I'm going to say about it. And then, of course, as one of the moms that buys cookies, we got Stephanie Courtney, who, of course, is known for playing the character of Flo in all those commercials you see on TV. And then, of course, this is the first time we also get to see Ray's daughter, Alexandra, in a recurring role where she plays Allie's friend, Molly. So it's a nice little fun little meta joke there. Alexandra is best friends with the character that's based off her. That's kind of cool. I do wonder if she and Madeline Sweeney were actually friends on the set. That would have been interesting. The little interaction to see them would have been a little bit more based in reality and a little bit more believable too. Now, the plot of this episode is that Ray, for once, has to take Allie to the meeting of her girl troop. Now, they don't call them the Girl Scouts. In fact, I didn't actually write down the name of it. But it's in all intents and purposes the Girl Scouts. It's just, not having that little thing right there. Now, Peggy is giving the girls a little pitch on how to sell cookies. And the way that she does it is a way I find annoying when people are trying to sell stuff when you go in front of the stores and all that. Or one of them suggests the way I feel you should do is like, hey, would you like to buy any cookies, Holmes? And then you can either buy them or be like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't, not on the budget. No. They go immediately to it. Go, hold on and go, how many cookies do you want to buy? Which I get being a little assertive and a little aggressive in certain situations. This is not the one. And we actually see later on that type of sales pitch goes right into the dumper. When Allie tries it later on in the episode, she says, how many cookies would you like to buy? The guy's like, how about 0? Now, it could be the way she did it, but that's, from how I look at it, a pretty legit reaction to somebody being that aggressive with their sales pitch. But it's not the only thing we see Peggy being aggressive with. They're doing, now that they're selling cookies, they're doing their little numbers thing, like whoever wins, whoever sells the most cookies gets this prize, whoever gets second place gets this prize, and etc. Now, the funny thing is that when giving out the spots to go set up their tables, instead of putting them in a bucket, like you should, and then drawing it out, she just divvies them out. And here's the part that really is going to make you hate this character, at least in this episode, especially if you happen to have daughters that sell cookies who are in Girl Scouts. She gives herself the best spot. Think about it. If, based on what the other parent tells Ray when they're talking, once they see where their spots are, And by the way, in case you're wondering, the best part is Marco's Pizza. Why haven't they revolted against Peggy at this point? Now, I know she's this super aggressive, as we're going to see throughout the episode, but if the entire group of troop parents band together and revolt against her, there's not really much she can do. She could try arguing, but there's only so much one person can try to argue against a group like that. Now, it's possible, but there's a lot to know. I know if I was in there, I mean, I don't really like confrontation, but in this situation, I'd be putting my foot down. But that's just me. Now, Ray originally had a pretty decent spot, but then Peggy makes him switch with that other parent he's talking to, and now he has Petey's, the muffler place, the worst spot. And when he tries to go tell Deborah, she is like, yeah, trying to put it aside, mainly because it seems like she's really trying to give Peggy the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they got along actually in the meetings. It's just one of those weird things, like, why are you believing Ray? Now, we know from the past Ray can be man-child, idiot, not really wanting to talk about things, as we've seen before. But the way she just shoots down how he's expressing himself when it comes to Peggy and all that, it's like, And this continues in a scene in the middle of the episode where Ray goes across the street. He sees his family eating their cookies. And then he finds out that they didn't buy these cookies from Allie. They bought them from Peggy when she came to the door. And he starts lambasting them, and then they start talking about it. And when Deborah comes in, and he points out the fact they bought it from that, calling her names like Peggy Hitler. It's still funny to even say. She goes into a whole thing about Ray hating women, and even Marie backs her up. And Ray tries to denounce it, like, I don't hate women. Don't lie, Raymond. Now, it's interesting to see Marie back up Deborah, because it happens so rarely. But in this situation, it's like, no, Marie, this is not the hill for you to jump in and defend Deborah on. Not this one. Now, of course, Marie, part of her whole thing is like, you didn't want to talk to me. And I love the line that Ray says, and Ray Romano sells this so beautifully. What? You're a mother. You're my mother. You're not a woman. Yeah, I was watching that part while I was in the shower, because I was rewatching it just to make sure I had all the stuff on point before I reviewed it. I couldn't help but laugh in the shower while hearing that. I'm like, oh, that line is still funny. And it's one of the few parts where Frank interjects himself in here. Frank is only in one scene in this episode that I can remember, and it's this one. And he's mainly just sitting there reading the paper, then interjecting every now and then. And that's when he interjects at one point to you. He didn't want to talk to you. Which, given how we've seen Marie is, can you really fault teenage Ray for not wanting to talk to her? I mean, we've already seen in the past how his thoughts about her. I mean, he wrote in his diary, I hat my mom. So obviously he didn't want to talk to her about stuff, and she still, even though he's kind of apologized for that, she's still not letting it go and trying to say because of that he hates women. No, that is not, in this situation, A plus B does not equal C. And Ray does not hate women in this thing. He just hates it when a person is a bully, and that's essentially what Peggy is. Now, in the next appearance we see from her, we get a little bit of a peek behind the door to see why she is super assertive in the way she is. Part of it comes from some stuff Deborah has brought up in the past about working in a male-dominated industry. Well, maybe not for this, maybe her other real job. She's having to be assertive and all that. But there is a line you draw, and Peggy has stepped way over the line from what we've seen in this episode to the point where she's domineering and bullying all the true parents. And it definitely is rubbing Ray the wrong way. And him calling her out on it, even if he's just grumbling it to other people in his extended family, is not hating women or having a problem with women. Because with how this person acts, you take gender completely out of the equation and look at it, you'd be like, yeah, this person is a bitch. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This person is a bitch. You would look at it that way. But the moment you reveal that it's a female, you're supposed to kowtow and be like, well, maybe not so much. No. A person who is a jerk regardless of gender identity, regardless of sexuality or whatnot. And it's not bigotry to call out on that. In this situation, it's not misogyny to call a spade, to use that old term. She is being a jerk. And she deserves to be called out on it. And the fact that Marie and Deborah just go automatically inside with her a little bit and call Ray a problem with women, It's stupid. Now, to Deborah's credit, if I could talk right, she does come to Ray's defense later on in the episode because he and Allie go set up in front of Marco's. Peggy and her daughter come up. They send the kids off to go get ice cream. They get in a little spat. And this is the other thing I would say that Peggy is a bitch. What I called her that. Because how does she solve the problem here? She decides, you know what? I'm going to fucking commit battery. Here's the thing, Peggy. This isn't your private property. It's public property. I mean, even if you guys gave out the thing, he can go set up there if he wants. Marco has no problem with it. He can go set up there. What are you going to do? I mean, you can always kick Molly out of the... You can always kick Allie out of the troop. But what you going to do other than that? Not really much you can do. She doesn't own it. Here's the thing. She grabs the table and then forces him to the ground and pushes on there and like, you going to leave? That is battery. Now, the law might be written a little differently in New York than it is over here in California, especially given the years difference. But no matter how you slice it, she committed battery. She attacked Ray, took him to the ground, and used an object. So depending on how it's lit, you might also get assault with, I don't really know a deadly weapon, but assault with a weapon of some kind since it was a table. But probably battery is the best one's going to stick. And just because she's a woman attacking a man, you're not supposed to look at that. Now, it's played for humor, of course, especially with how Ray is a character, now she is a character and how they're clashing. But it doesn't change the fact that that's what she did. And, of course, this is the moment where Deborah walks in, and this is why I say she comes out of the fog, because she sees Ray pinned to the ground with the table, and she instantly goes into defend husband mode, and Peggy backs off a little bit. Because we've seen 6 seasons worth of Deborah coming to the defense of her husband, yelling at her husband and all that. So we know that when she sees her family getting bullied like this and sees that Ray was actually telling her the truth and it's not just him being a woman hater, she goes to defense and be like, if you ever beat up my husband, she didn't beat me up. And Peggy backs off, and once the kids come back, she eventually leaves. So I have to give Deborah props there. Now it makes me wonder how Marie would have reacted when she showed up, because we've only seen Marie try to go physical with somebody once, and that's when Joanne called her a bitch at the end of season 4 when we had the flashback. So for this, we could just imagine she probably would have walked over and gave Peggy the look like... Peggy probably might not know who she is at first, but given how she gives a little comment about Ray's family member when he tells her that you crossed the line by selling to him, she probably knows that's his mother, so she'd be going off on it. And to Ray's credit, he and Allie do end up winning the chair. Now, if Deborah had let him take the sign-up sheet to Madison Square Garden like he wanted to, they probably would have won by a big margin. Now, the thing about that is that she's like, oh, we always let the kids sell the cookies on their own, which is admirable. But on this flip side, there's also nothing wrong with taking the sign-up sheet to work and see if anybody there wants to buy cookies, especially if they're big ones, and especially since this is supposed to be their universe's equivalent of the Girl Scouts. People probably do love selling cookies, because I can tell you from my work experiences, when someone brings that sheet in, people are all ready to sign it. And then, of course, once they actually start selling the cookies outside the stores, people are all gung-ho to go get their favorite flavors. Probably not as much recently, but maybe right now because he's bulking, my buddy Jeff would be wanting to get some of those ones he loves. Maybe at least a box or two, and then slowly make his way through them. There's only a couple other bits of trivia, like I already mentioned who plays who. The sales pitch that Peggy does at the beginning apparently is supposed to be loosely based on Alec Baldwin's and Glengarry Glen Ross, which I have not seen, so maybe that's why it doesn't sound that familiar to me. But I can kind of see it does kind of feel like a reference and all that. And performance-wise, Amy does a great job as Peggy. She makes you want to hate her. And, of course, the next appearance, it also makes you sympathize with her a little bit. Arnetta Walker plays the friendly mom Ray has a conversation with. She's only there a little bit, but pretty good. And Stephanie is the one mother who buys the cookies. Does a pretty good job. I don't love that she lambasts Ray. He's going to be bouncing off the walls now, you jerk. Well, you didn't have to buy the cookies. You could just pick your son and walked off with them. That's on you. And there's not really much else to say about this. It's a good Ray-centered episode. And like I've gone off ad nauseum already, it does show that the family members can sometimes pick the wrong side, at least from the perspective of the characters, but from us being the semi-independent third party who sees everything as privy to more stuff, we see that they're wrong. And of course, a lesson you can learn from this episode is if a family member is telling you they're having a problem with someone else, regardless of gender, regardless of sexuality, listen to them and hear them out, because they might be telling you the truth. And even if you know this person as well, they might be seeing something that you're not. There might be a side of that person that's coming out when you're not there, or only around other people that they have issue with. And that's really all I have to say about it. Next episode, though, that's going to be a fun one to cover, because not only is that another one of the first episodes I saw with my abuela, it's also one of my favorite episodes from this season and in general. That's right. Next episode, we're going to be bringing in the FBI. And Robert's going to be a flashy dresser, if only for a little bit before it's ruined, of course, by Marie. That's right. Next time, it's going to be Lucky Suit. Till then, guys.